You've worked hard all your life, and now it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But here's something most people don't tell you about aging. Your peace and happiness are just as important as your health. Yet so many people in your life can unknowingly rob you of that peace. As we age, we must make the tough decision to protect ourselves from people who, if we're not careful, can drain us emotionally, mentally, and even physically. It's not about being unkind, it's about knowing who has your best interest at heart and who might be holding you back. In today's video, we're revealing the 5 types of people you should avoid in your older years to safeguard your peace and happiness. If you want to live your best life in your later years, you need to know who to let go of and why it's the best thing you can do for yourself. 1. The drama seekers. People who thrive on conflict. You know those people who seem to live for drama? Every conversation feels like a battlefield, and every interaction feels like it could turn into an argument at any moment. Whether it's family members, friends, or acquaintances, these individuals are always at the center of conflict, stirring up tension and making life more stressful than it needs to be. In old age, the last thing you want is unnecessary drama. You've earned your peace, and keeping these kinds of people around will only disrupt it. Let me give you an example. A woman in her 70s, let's call her Susan, spent her entire life dealing with a sibling who thrived on chaos. Susan loved her brother, but every time they spoke, it was a barrage of negativity, gossip, complaints, and criticism. It wasn't long before the constant tension started to affect Susan's health and happiness. Her blood pressure increased, her sleep became restless, and she found herself dreading every family gathering. Susan realized that her brother was never going to change. He was addicted to the drama, and she had to make a difficult decision. Stop allowing him to disrupt her peace. The truth is, drama seekers can come in many forms. The person who always has a problem, the one who spreads gossip, or the one who stirs up fights to feel important. You don't have to cut them out completely, but limiting your time and emotional energy with them is crucial for your well-being. When you surround yourself with drama, you waste precious time and energy that could be better spent on peace, relaxation, and enjoying your golden years. Have you ever come across some drama-seeking people? How did it end? I bet it wasn't something you look forward to encountering again. Let us know in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification icon so others can share in your knowledge. Number 2. The energy vampires. People who drain you emotionally. Have you ever spent time with someone who leaves you feeling completely exhausted, even though you didn't do anything physically demanding? These are the energy vampires. People who, without even realizing it, suck the life out of you. They're the ones who always need you to listen to their problems, vent about their frustrations, or unload their emotional baggage. While it's natural to be there for friends and family, constantly supporting someone who isn't giving back can take a toll on your mental and emotional health. Imagine this. You're in your early 70s. Let's say you're Margaret, a kind, giving woman who's always been there for everyone. One of your close friends, Julie, has been going through a tough time for months. Her husband passed away, her children are busy with their own lives, and she feels isolated. At first, you want to be there for her. You listen, you offer support, and you provide comfort. But soon it becomes overwhelming. Every conversation with Julie feels like an emotional weight, and instead of feeling uplifted, you're drained. Your energy is gone, and you find yourself becoming irritable, tired, and even questioning whether the friendship is worth the emotional toll it's taking. Julie is going through a hard time, but the truth is, the relationship is unbalanced. You're constantly pouring energy into her without receiving anything in return. And it's not just Julie. There are others like her who don't recognize the toll their constant neediness is having on you. It's a vicious cycle that can leave you feeling empty and emotionally spent. Now, this doesn't mean you should abandon your loved ones during their difficult times. But there's a difference between being there and being constantly drained by them. You have to protect your energy, especially as you get older. In fact, you have the right to set boundaries. You can still offer compassion, but if someone is taking more than they're giving, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or even physically, it's okay to step back. You are allowed to prioritize your own well-being. In some cases, you might even need to let go of these energy-draining relationships entirely to protect your peace. So, how do you identify these energy vampires in your life? Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain individuals. If you're left feeling exhausted, anxious, or emotionally overwhelmed, it might be time to reassess that relationship. Protecting your emotional space is just as important as protecting your physical health. 3. The negative Nellies. People who always see the glass as half empty. We all know them. The ones who always seem to find the downside of everything. No matter how much you try to share your joy, your excitement, or your dreams, they immediately have something negative to say. These individuals are constantly reminding you of what could go wrong, what you should be afraid of, or why something is destined to fail. You've worked hard to get to this stage in your life, and the last thing you need is someone constantly casting a shadow over your happiness with their negativity. Take the example of Robert, a man in his late 60s. For years, he'd been friends with George, a man who had a knack for always focusing on the negative. Robert started noticing that whenever he shared his hopes or plans with George, whether it was a weekend getaway, a new hobby he was starting, or even a simple conversation about his health, George would always respond with some form of pessimism. If Robert mentioned taking a trip, George would say, "Well, I hope your knees hold up." Or, "You might want to reconsider that. It's too much stress for your age." When Robert talked about his health improvements, George would say, "You know, you can't trust your body as you get older. It'll let you down soon enough." At first, Robert didn't think much of it. After all, George was a close friend, and he figured George was just trying to be realistic. But over time, Robert started feeling less and less excited about the things he used to love. He began second-guessing his decisions, feeling anxious about trips he once looked forward to, and even questioning his health improvements. The constant bombardment of negative thoughts and words began to erode his confidence and joy. He found himself starting to feel the weight of George's pessimism weighing on his mind. It was as if George was planting seeds of doubt, and they were beginning to grow. The problem with people like George is that their negativity isn't just a one-off. It's a pattern, and negativity has a way of creeping into your own thoughts. You may start questioning yourself more than you should, doubting your plans, or even fearing the future. The more you listen to them, the harder it becomes to maintain a positive outlook. It's like trying to walk through a beautiful day while someone's holding an umbrella over your head, blocking the sunshine. They don't realize it, but they're keeping you from seeing the beauty of life and what's possible in your golden years. This is why it's crucial to recognize when you're surrounded by these negative Nellies and take action. It's not about being rude or cutting people off for no reason. It's about protecting your mental and emotional health. You deserve to live the second half of your life filled with hope, joy, and excitement. And that can't happen when you're constantly battling negative energy. It's essential to set boundaries with people who always bring the mood down. Maybe it's time to distance yourself from friends like George, or at least limit the amount of emotional energy you invest in those conversations. When you make the choice to spend more time with people who uplift you, who inspire you, and who help you focus on possibilities, something incredible happens. Your energy shifts. You start to feel more optimistic, more energized, and more confident in your decisions. And that's the kind of mindset you need to enjoy the freedom and happiness that comes with aging gracefully. Number 4. The dependents. People who always rely on you but never give back. There's nothing wrong with helping others, especially those you care about. In fact, one of the most fulfilling parts of life can be supporting your loved ones, whether that's providing a listening ear, sharing advice, or offering practical assistance. But there's a fine line between being a support system and becoming someone's permanent safety net. As you get older, you don't have the energy or emotional bandwidth to constantly give without receiving anything in return, especially when it feels like you're being taken advantage of. Take the story of Elaine, a woman in her 70s, who had a niece, Caroline, who was always in need of help. Caroline would call Elaine whenever things weren't going right in her life, when she needed money, when her car broke down, when she was stressed about work. Elaine, being the loving aunt she was, would step in without hesitation, offering her time, her resources, and even her emotional support. But over time, Elaine started noticing a pattern. Caroline's problems never seemed to end. Every time one issue was solved, another popped up. And what hurt Elaine the most was that Caroline never seemed to offer anything in return. Not even a simple thank you or a small gesture of appreciation. It was always, "Elaine, I need your help," or "Elaine, I'm struggling again." At first, Elaine didn't mind. She loved her niece and felt good about being there for her. But as the years went on, Elaine realized she was becoming emotionally drained. Caroline's constant neediness was starting to wear her down. Elaine wasn't just physically tired from helping out. She was emotionally exhausted from always being the one to give. And soon, Elaine began to resent the relationship. She felt used, and she was starting to recognize that her own peace and happiness were being sacrificed in the process. This is what happens when you're surrounded by people who always rely on you, but never reciprocate. They take and take without giving back, and over time, it can erode your sense of self-worth and your ability to enjoy life. As you get older, you don't need to feel responsible for everyone's problems. You need to protect your time and energy for yourself and the people who respect your boundaries. Of course, it's natural to want to help the people you care about, but helping someone who is always dependent on you can become emotionally exhausting. The reality is that we all need to learn how to set boundaries, especially when we're older. It's okay to say no, and it's okay to stop giving when you're not getting anything in return. If someone is continually draining you without offering support, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Protecting your peace means recognizing when it's time to step back and create some space for yourself. The key to these types of relationships is balance. You can still be there for others, but make sure you're not the one carrying all the weight. Start creating healthy boundaries with dependence in your life. Whether it's saying no to a request or simply being clear about what you can offer. When you do this, you'll find that your relationships become more fulfilling and your energy is restored. 5. The toxic critics, people who constantly undermine your choices. We all have those people in our lives who seem to think it's their job to tell us what we're doing wrong, point out our flaws, and undermine our decisions. These toxic critics never see the good in what you're doing. Instead, they focus on what could go wrong, what you should have done differently, and how they would have done things better. Whether it's family members, close friends, or even acquaintances, these critics can chip away at your confidence and joy, especially in your later years when you should be celebrating your independence and choices. Take the case of Frank, a man in his early 70s who always followed his passions and tried to enjoy life to the fullest. He was an avid gardener, loved taking short trips, and had a knack for starting new hobbies that kept him engaged. But Frank had an old friend, Dave, who seemed to constantly find faults in his decisions. Whenever Frank decided to take a trip, Dave would say, "You're getting too old for that kind of thing. What if something happens to you while you're away?" When Frank talked about a new gardening project, Dave would roll his eyes and say, "Are you sure you're up for that? Maybe you should just hire someone to do it for you." Every time Frank had a new idea, Dave was there, poking holes in it, suggesting that Frank was too old or too weak to be pursuing his passions. At first, Frank tried to brush off Dave's comments, but over time they started to affect him. He began questioning his abilities, doubting his decisions, and feeling anxious about the things that once brought him joy. What started as casual advice slowly morphed into a pattern of criticism that left Frank feeling like he wasn't capable of making his own choices anymore. The problem with toxic critics is that they don't just criticize. They plant seeds of doubt that can grow and flourish in your mind. It's one thing to receive constructive criticism from someone who has your best interests at heart. But toxic critics are different. They undermine you at every turn, making you feel insecure about your decisions, your abilities, and even your worth. And the worst part is that they can do all of this under the guise of helping you, when in reality, They're just holding you back from living your best life. As you get older, you've earned the right to make your own choices and live life on your terms. You don't need anyone, especially toxic critics, telling you what you should or shouldn't do. If you find yourself surrounded by people who consistently put you down or try to control your choices, it's time to set boundaries. You have the power to protect your peace and your confidence, and that means cutting out or distancing yourself from people who undermine you at every turn. When you recognize the toxic critics in your life, it's important to remind yourself that their opinions don't define you. It's your life, your choices, and your happiness that matter. You've earned the right to follow your passions without fear of judgment or criticism. And when you start surrounding yourself with people who support and uplift you, you'll find that your confidence returns, and you start living in a way that brings you true joy. 6. The drama seekers, people who bring chaos into your life. At any stage of life, there are those who seem to thrive on creating chaos, conflict, or unnecessary drama. They're the ones who always seem to be involved in a fight, a scandal, or some kind of upheaval. Whether it's stirring up arguments, spreading gossip, or simply bringing unnecessary tension into a room, these people love to keep things in a constant state of turmoil. As you age, one of the best things you can do for your peace and happiness is to avoid people who constantly seem to be at the center of chaos. Your golden years should be about peace, calm, and tranquility, not drama-filled crises. Let's take the story of Linda, a woman in her late 60s who had a friend named Karen. Karen was always at the center of some form of drama, whether it was fighting with family members, stirring up trouble with her neighbors, or finding herself in one complicated situation after another. Linda tried to be supportive at first, listening to Karen's stories, offering advice, and trying to help her solve problems. But Karen wasn't looking for solutions. She just wanted the drama to keep going. Every time Linda suggested a peaceful approach, Karen would escalate things. It felt like Karen thrived on conflict, and Linda was the one who paid the emotional price. Over time, Linda began to notice the toll this drama was taking on her. She found herself feeling more stressed, anxious, and constantly overwhelmed by Karen's chaotic life. Even when she tried to distance herself, Karen would find ways to pull her back in. Linda realized that the chaos wasn't just affecting Karen. It was affecting her too. Her once peaceful, serene days were filled with emotional exhaustion from trying to help someone who didn't want peace, only turmoil. What you must understand is that people who thrive on drama are like emotional vampires. They drain your energy, distract you from your own happiness, and pull you into unnecessary conflicts. In your later years, it's essential to protect your peace. There's no time for this kind of emotional mess. You deserve a life that is calm, fulfilling, and free from constant drama. These people will never bring you peace. They'll only distract you from it. You have the power to set boundaries with drama seekers, and the best thing you can do is choose to walk away from the chaos they bring. So, now that you're aware of the 5 types of people who can undermine your peace and happiness, it's time to take a hard look at your own life. How many of these people do you have in your circle right now? Are there individuals in your life who are draining your energy, casting doubt on your decisions, or creating unnecessary drama? The good news is, you can take control. Start by setting boundaries, distancing yourself from those who don't serve your well-being, and filling your circle with people who uplift and support you. Remember, your time and energy are precious, especially as you grow older. Protect your peace like it's your most valuable asset. Take a moment to reflect. Which of these people do you need to let go of to protect your happiness? Start making those changes today. Because you deserve a life that is peaceful, joyful, and free from the negativity that others bring into it. You have the power to choose who you allow into your life, and the more you surround yourself with positivity, the more your happiness will grow.